Welcome to Overnight Market Brief, pre-market edition by AGI Era. Good morning. Today is Tuesday, December 30th, 2025, and it is shortly after 8 a.m. Eastern Time. This is your executive summary of global market developments, analyzing the overnight flows in Asia and Europe, the key macro drivers, and the setup for the North American Open. The prior session in macro context. First, a look back at yesterday's close. Wall Street finished on a defensive footing, with investors booking profits in a low-volume holiday session. The S&P 500 settled at 6906, down 0.35%, while the Nasdaq 100 declined 0.46% to close at 25,526. Crucially, the session was driven by light profit-taking, but the real story right now is in the macro assets. Right now, the 10-year Treasury yield is trading at 4.14%, climbing 71 basis points. The U.S. dollar index is effectively flat at 97.79, while crude oil is trading higher around $58.34 a barrel. The firming in yields is acting as a headwind for growth and tech valuations this morning, continuing the theme from yesterday's session and capping upside enthusiasm. Overnight session. Moving to the overnight session, global markets have been quiet and lacked a unified direction. In Asia, the picture was mixed. In Tokyo, the Nikkei 225 finished down 0.37%, weighed down by weaker-than-expected factory output data from neighboring South Korea, which dampened regional sentiment. Meanwhile, in Greater China, the Hang Seng bucked the trend, rising 0.86%, while the Shanghai Composite finished unchanged. The strength in Hong Kong was largely technical, while mainland markets remain in a holding pattern. In Europe, major indices are trading cautiously mixed, providing a muted lead-in for U.S. traders as they await more significant catalysts from the U.S. session. U.S. futures and the open. Turning to the U.S. pre-market, equity futures are flat, signaling a cautious open. S&P 500 futures are trading unchanged, while Nasdaq 100 futures are also flat. The price action suggests investors are hesitant to take on new risk ahead of today's primary catalyst. The slight uptick in Treasury yields is keeping any potential rallies in technology shares in check. The daily catalyst. Looking ahead to the session, investors are focused on three key catalysts. First, the main event will be the release of the minutes from the Federal Reserve's December meeting, which will be scrutinized for clues on the timing and pace of future rate adjustments. Second, we will get the S&P Case-Shiller Home Price Index, offering a fresh read on the health of the U.S. housing market. And finally, consumer confidence data will provide insight into the state of the U.S. consumer heading into the new year. With a light economic calendar, flows will be driven primarily by the interpretation of the Fed's minutes. Given the overnight setup in rates, the market's path of least resistance appears to be range-bound, pending any hawkish surprises from the central bank's commentary. That concludes your overnight market brief. Disclaimer: this podcast is not financial advice. Data may be delayed or inaccurate. Always conduct your own due diligence.